So a group of critics are saying that by W. Ways, the man to whom Shakespeare dedicated his sonnets was William Harvard, third Earl of Pembroke. Okay, this William Harvard was Shakespeare's patron. Shakespeare had a kind of relationship with that person. Shakespeare got a lot of help from that person. So some critics are saying that it may be that Shakespeare dedicated his sonnets to this William Humbert, our third Earl of Pembroke. Um, it may be that Shakespeare glorified the beauty of this man in his sonnets, and he dedicated the sonnets to his man. But again, there is another group of critics who are saying that it was not actually the Earl of Pembroke to whom Shakespeare dedicated the sonnets. Rather, Shakespeare dedicated the sonnet to the Earl of Southampton, whose name was Henry uh, Wriothesley. Okay, his name was Henry Wriothesley, and to this man Shakespeare may have dedicated his sonnets. This theory is getting a strong foot in this sense that Shakespeare dedicated one of his long poems to this man. The name of the poem was Venus and Adonis. Shakespeare wrote this poem, and this poem Shakespeare dedicated to the Earl of Southampton. As Shakespeare dedicated one of his big poems, long poems, to the Earl of Southampton, some critics are thinking that it maybe Shakespeare dedicated his sonnets to the Earl of Southampton. Why did Shakespeare dedicate his long poem, that Venus and Adonis, to the Earl of Southampton? Because the Earl of Southampton was also a good patron of Shakespeare. You know, when Shakespeare was writing, England was infested with plague. As today, the whole world has been attacked by coronavirus. In the same way, when Shakespeare was writing, and England was attacked by that black disease called plague, and people were in problems. They were facing different problems. And Shakespeare was also one of the people who were facing problem. And during this time, Shakespeare was helped economically by the Earl of Southampton. And Shakespeare was very grateful to that man for the help that he got from the Earl of Southampton. And it is out of his indebtedness to that man that Shakespeare dedicated his poem Venus and Adonis to the memory of the Earl of Southampton. As Shakespeare dedicated this poem to the Earl of Southampton, Shakespeare may have dedicated his sonnets to the Earl of Southampton. This is what many critics say and believe. It may be, it may be that the Earl of Southampton was the man to whom Shakespeare dedicated the sonnets, and it may also be that the Earl of Southampton's beauty Shakespeare has immortalized, glorified in the sonnets. He loved the person so much that he thought that he should do something to uh, glorify the honor of that person, and that's why the sonnets may be a kind of tribute to the Earl of Southampton from Shakespeare. And the Earl of Southampton was also the Earl of Southampton was very handsome, very young at the time, and he was very benevolent. And the Earl of Southampton seems to have the qualities that Shakespeare has glorified in his sonnets from 1 to 126. And this is another reason why some critics are saying that this is the Earl of Southampton whose beauty, whose youth, whose qualities Shakespeare has glorified in these sonnets. There is another uh, uh, saying, another theory that some people are bringing before us, that is, uh, some people are saying that Shakespeare may have a kind of homosexual relationship with the Earl of Southampton. And that's why Shakespeare thought to glorify his beauty in his sonnets. You know that it is very difficult for one to uh, praise the beauty of a man. A man cannot praise the beauty of a man. A man cannot praise the beauty of a man. A man can praise the beauty of a woman. A woman can be very beautiful to the eyes of a man. But how can a man be very handsome, very beautiful to the eyes of a man? And you will never see that any man has written poetry glorifying the beauty of another man. A man can write a poem glorifying the beauty of a woman. But we see that Shakespeare has glorified the beauty of a young man. Shakespeare was also at the time young. Shakespeare was not an old man at the time. Okay, so Shakespeare is glorified the beauty, youth of a young man in such a way, it seems that Shakespeare had a kind of love relationship with that person. So if Shakespeare glorifies the beauty and youth of a young man, so many people are saying that perhaps Shakespeare had a kind of homo erotic relationship, homosexual relationship with that person. So there may be a kind of relationship between Shakespeare and the Earl of Southampton, and as Shakespeare loved the person very much, uh, so Shakespeare wrote poems glorifying the beauty of that young man. As many poets have done that, as you know, Petrarch wrote many poems glorifying the beauty of his beloved. You will see Andrew Marvell is writing many love poems that you will read in this course. He has also written many love poems glorifying the beauty of his beloved. We'll read John Donne. There we'll see that John Donne is writing many love poems glorifying the beauty of his beloved. Shakespeare is glorifying the beauty and youth of a person. How can a man glorify the beauty and youth of a person if the person did not have that kind of relationship with that person? So some people want to say that Shakespeare perhaps had a kind of homosexual relationship with the Earl of Southampton, and just out of his love to that person, Shakespeare wrote these poems glorifying his beauty and uh, youth in this poem. But this is not true. This is not true because we know very little about Shakespeare. Very little we know about Shakespeare. And the little that we know about Shakespeare is again unverified. It is not examined because Shakespeare did not write any biography, not did any man, uh, Shakespeare did not write any autobiography, nor did any man write any biography of Shakespeare during Shakespeare's lifetime or immediately after the death of Shakespeare. As a result, we cannot know from any authentic source who Shakespeare was. Shakespeare is a mystery to us because we don't find an authentic source from which we can know exactly who Shakespeare was, what Shakespeare was. Many people are saying many different things about Shakespeare. Even many, today you will find some critics who are saying that the bald headed man whom we see and whom we know as Shakespeare was not actually Shakespeare. You will see the portrait of Shakespeare on the cover page of Shakespeare's plays, but some people are saying that the man whom we know to be Shakespeare is not actually Shakespeare. Just few years back in our country, a man wrote in Prothomalo, and that man said that actually Shakespeare was not a man, Shakespeare was a woman. So who was Shakespeare? Shakespeare is a great mystery to us. And in absence of an authentic source, as I've already said that Shakespeare did not write any autobiography, that from that book we can understand whether Shakespeare was this or not. We say Shakespeare was not an educated man. Shakespeare was not born in an aristocratic family. So many things we say about Shakespeare. But is it true that Shakespeare was not an educated man? Can it be possible for a man to write in this language if the man was not an educated man? Read the plays of Shakespeare, read the poems of Shakespeare, you will come across some words and phrases that could be used only by a man who was highly educated. Without being highly educated, it is not possible for a man to write that kind of language. Shakespeare is the founder of modern English language. Before Shakespeare, the English language was not as modern as it is now. Today, we are writing the language that was developed by Shakespeare. Before Shakespeare, English language was a dead language, was not so a strong, lively language because people of England for almost 350 years had not spoken in English language. They had been speaking in French language. French was the language of England for more than 350 years. All educated people of that country were writing, speaking in French. And English was spoken only by the illiterate people, uneducated people during that time. As a result, in the Middle English period, we find the English language is Huh. English language is not so beautiful as it was in the old English period, because for as it was not used by people of England for more than 300 years, people forgot many English words, and many of the English words were replaced by French words. Today we find many French words. In the Middle English period, 10,000 French words entered into English language. Another serious thing happened to English language, that people forgot the spellings of English words. As people did not write anything in this language for more than 350 years, people forgot the spellings of words. People forgot the right pronunciations of words. At that time, Shakespeare was writing plays. And when Shakespeare was writing plays, and Shakespeare was very consistent in writing sentences, he was writing sentences exactly in the same way, in the same pattern in all his plays. And people were writing language from Shakespeare's plays. People who were writing, people were learning the structures of English sentences from Shakespeare's plays. Whenever there was no dictionary at that time. There was no dictionary at that time. So people didn't have any opportunity of knowing the right pronunciations of words, right spellings of words, right meanings of words. So what would people do to learn language? Finally, it was Shakespeare's plays which were playing significant role to the reconstruction of English language. So if Shakespeare had not been an educated man, he could not have written his plays in this kind of language. But we don't know whether Shakespeare was an educated man or not, because we don't have any authentic source from which we can know whether Shakespeare was an educated man or not. As I've already said, that Shakespeare did not write any autobiography, that from these authentic source we would know who Shakespeare was. Not did any man write any biography of Shakespeare during his lifetime or immediately after the date of his after his death. As a result, there is an absence of authentic sources from which we can know who Shakespeare was. Shakespeare was not so great a dramatist or so great an author as he became 200 years after his death. So people came to write about Shakespeare. People began to feel interested in Shakespeare uh, many years after the death of Shakespeare. And when people began to feel interested in Shakespeare, people did not have any authentic source to know from who Shakespeare was, because the people who know Shakespeare were dead, and nobody wrote anything on Shakespeare that from those writings people 200 years later would know who Shakespeare was. As a result, in absence of such authentic sources, many people are saying many different things. And these things are repeated. And through repetition, many of these absurd things about Shakespeare have become true to us today. Okay, it is that's why I'm saying that much of what we know about Shakespeare is not true. Much of what we know about Shakespeare is true. It's not true. It's off the mark. I will say that a lot of information that we have known about Shakespeare from different persons or from different sources is incorrect, because these sources are not verified sources. These sources are very much like gauge works. People imagined that these things might have been done by Shakespeare. And these imaginations have been repeated through different media. And gradually they have become very much like truths. You know, if a lie is repeated for 10 times, it stands for a truth. So many such imaginations, gauges about Shakespeare have become true today because of being repeated uh, often through different media. That's why Shakespeare has remained a mystery today. Uh, As I have already said, one critic is saying that Shakespeare was not a man, Shakespeare was a woman. Shakespeare was buried, but in that epitaph, Shakespeare wrote his epitaph, and there it is, he forbade people not to dig his grave to uh, get his to know anything about his dead body. Okay, so this is how Shakespeare has remained a mystery to us. So who was Shakespeare? Recently, one professor of Oxford University is saying that uh, the man whose beauty and youth Shakespeare glorified in his sonnets was his son. Shakespeare had a son. His name was Hamlet. Shakespeare had a son. His name was Hamlet. Shakespeare loved his son very much. He loved his son very much. But you know that if what we know about Shakespeare is true, then Shakespeare was not a rich person. Okay, Shakespeare was not a rich person. Shakespeare was, Shakespeare was working in a theater, moving theater. Shakespeare was working in Shakespeare. Even we have learned that Shakespeare fled from his village, Stratford on Avon. That was his Shakespeare's uh, birthplace. From that place, Shakespeare fled to London because once he went to hunt deer in a restricted forest, and the owner of the forest knew that Shakespeare had done that, and in fear of being arrested by that man, Shakespeare fled from his place and came to London. Shakespeare was staying in London. This is one, we don't know whether it is true or wrong. It has been said by somebody, as it is repeated several times, and it has become very much like a truth, and we are believing it. But Shakespeare was born in that village, Stratford on Avon, and he came to London. He was writing plays. This is true. This is true. And Shakespeare was writing plays not to become a great author. It is not that Shakespeare, like Rabindranath Tagore, wanted to be a great author, and that's why he was writing. He was writing plays just to earn money. To earn money was his uh, main aim behind writing. He was writing plays. He didn't know whether what he was writing was good or bad. He was just writing. He noticed one thing, that he the theater for which he was writing the plays was feeling very happy, because every day a large number of audiences are coming to watch the plays that Shakespeare wrote. And when these plays were being staged, many people were coming every day. The number of the audiences was increasing, and the theater company was very happy with Shakespeare. Shakespeare was writing plays, and Shakespeare was writing plays to earn money. So Shakespeare was away from the Stratford on Avon. He left his wife in his home, and he also left his children in his home with his wife. He had one son and one daughter. The name of the son was Hamnet, and the name of the daughter was Judith. So his son and daughter were living with his wife in his place home, and Shakespeare was in London. Huh? Was London? He was actually a worker, in fact, a kind of day laborer, writing plays to earn money to maintain his family. Try to understand the position of Shakespeare. It's not that Shakespeare was writing to be a great author. He was writing plays to earn money to support his family. Writing was his profession. That was his profession. Even sometimes he was acting in the play. If there was uh, a, a shortage of any a character, or if there was any shortage of any actor, it may be that one actor was feeling sick and one day he could not play the role on the stage, and Shakespeare was coming uh, on the stage as a replace. He was doing this. In this way, he was earning money. But Shakespeare did not forget his wife and children. He loved his wife and children so much that he tried to be connected to his wife and children. You know, Shakespeare's wife was uh, uh, older than Shakespeare. Okay, Shakespeare married a woman who was older than Shakespeare. That means, when does a man marry a woman who is older than the person? In Bangladesh, it happens in two cases. Okay, if a man loves a woman, one of my senior brothers married a woman who was 10 years older than him. He married that woman because he loved her very much. And that's why he married that woman who was 10 years senior to him. And in another case, it happens that perhaps the man has done something immoral with that woman, and he is caught by people, and finally that man is forced to get married to that woman. However, Shakespeare did not do that. Shakespeare loved his wife very much, and that's why he married that woman who was senior to him, older than him. So this fact proves that Shakespeare loved his wife. One day, Shakespeare heard that okay, his son was sick, and the Stratford on Avon was far away from London. Today, from London, it is just 3 hours journey. from London to Stratford-upon-Avon. Our salams are went there. You can know from him. It is just a 3-hour journey from London to Stratford-upon-Avon. But that time, it was far away. In 16, in 1596, in this year, his son died. Okay, his son was 11 years old when he died. He was born in 1585 and died in 1596. At that time, in 1596, the communication was not so good as it has become today. Now, a man needs only 3 hours to go to Stratford on Avon from London, but in 1596, a man needed almost 1 2 days to go there, because most of the time people had to work. They had to cross rivers, they had to walk along muddy roads to uh, reach that Stratford at heaven. So Shakespeare heard that his son was very ill, and Shakespeare was feeling very restless and unhappy because he loved his son so much that he could not uh, lose even a single minute staying in London. He started walking, and when he reached home, he found everything is gone. When he reached home, he found everything is gone. His son, if a dead body cannot be kept 3 days without burying it, so Shakespeare needs 3 days to reach his place from London. So when Shakespeare reached his place, he saw his loving son, his heart, his soul, whom he loved more than his own life. That son died. Not only died, even the dead body of his loving son was buried. Shakespeare didn't have the chance to see the face of his son for the last moment. It was very shocking and painful to Shakespeare that Shakespeare could not see the face of his son, could not touch the delicate body of his son. The, he could not touch the two hands with which he was playing when the baby was little. When the baby was sleeping with along beside the father, the baby was sleeping with his legs on the body of the father. These legs were more precious than even diamonds to Shakespeare. And Shakespeare lost his son. He didn't have the chance to see the face of his son, to touch the delicate body of his son. Shakespeare was feeling paralyzed when he didn't find his son living in his home. He traveled a lot to go to his home from London, but after going there, he saw everything was finished. Perhaps one day, soon after the death of his son, one day, standing beside the window, looking outside, looking at the sun, Shakespeare was remembering his son and was saying, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" Shakespeare loved his son so much that Shakespeare couldn't compare his son to anything on this universe. Shakespeare loved his son so much that nothing on this universe was as beautiful, as valuable as his son was. Even the most beautiful thing that God has created on the earth was not as beautiful as Shakespeare's son was to Shakespeare. And that is why perhaps one day, standing by the window, looking outside, looking at the sun, Shakespeare was saying, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" The first line of sonnet number 18 is, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" If you are a father, you know how much you love your son. A mother does not find anything on this universe as beautiful as his daughter, as her daughter, or as her son. Nothing in this universe is as valuable or as beautiful as my son to me. My son is the greatest treasure to me. My son is the most beautiful thing to me. Nothing in this universe is as beautiful, as valuable, as precious as my son. So I would not compare my son to anything on this earth, because I think that my son is more beautiful than even the most beautiful thing created by God on the earth. Shakespeare is doing that. In sonnet number 18, you will find, come to the sonnet. Shakespeare is saying, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" Look, Shakespeare is feeling hesitant. You know, summer is the most beautiful season. Summer is the most beautiful season in the western country. It is a season when trees become full of green leaves and flowers. The nature seems to assume a beautiful color. The whole nature puts on a kind of beauty that it becomes really very beautiful. No season is as beautiful as the summer. So that beautiful season is summer. Shakespeare says, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" Shakespeare actually does not want to compare that young man to the summer, because Shakespeare perhaps believes that this summer, although it is believed to be the most beautiful season in our country, is not as beautiful as this young man whom I am talking about in my sonnet. So, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? That is the first line of this sonnet. Sorry, I want to find out the sonnet first. Sonnet 18. So, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Look, Shakespeare is asking a question. That means he is feeling hesitant. Should he compare? eh? Should he compare that young man to a summer's day? Because a summer's day, which is believed to be the most beautiful season in England, is not as beautiful as the young man whose beauty he is glorifying in this poem. Why does he feel hesitant to compare his friend to the summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Shakespeare doesn't want to compare eh, his friend. I'll say, my son is my friend. My son says that you are my best friend, and he is also my best friend. Shakespeare doesn't want to compare his friend to a summer's day, because he says that thou art more lovely and more temperate. I don't want to compare you to a summer's day because you are more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling birds of May. The summer season has many limitations. Rough winds do shake the darling birds of May. In the month of May, many flowers bloom in the plants. The plants grow many birds, but a rough wind blows in the month of May, and that rough wind shakes away all the darling birds of May. So that is one of the imperfections, one of the limitations of the summer season. It has a kind of uh, imperfection that the rough wind does shake the darling birds of May. And summer's leaves had all too short a date. Another problem is that summer is not permanent. It is not everlasting. Okay, a summer season is not everlasting. Its duration is very little. It will end within very few days. A day of summer is not everlasting. It consists of only 24 hours. Huh? A day consists of only 24 hours. So a day may have much beauty, but that beauty will not last forever. That beauty will end with the end of the day. Sometime too hot, the eye of heaven shines. Another limitation, imperfection of the summer season is that during the summer's day, sometimes the sun shines very hotly overhead. The sun shines very hotly overhead. The eye of the heaven means the sun shines very hotly. It is another imperfection of the summer season to the eyes of the poet. Shakespeare says that the sun shines during the summer very hotly, or the sun shines during a summer's day very hotly. Often is his gold complexion dimmed, and sometimes even the gold complexion of the sun is dimmed. That means sometimes the sun is hidden under the clouds. So its luster, its beauty just not last long. Its beauty, its luster is not permanent, and its beauty is not as transparent as the beauty of my friend. summer season has so many limitations that in the summer, rough winds blow, rough winds shake the darling buds of the flower plants. In the summer season, the sun shines very hotly overhead. The summer season does not last forever. How many days does a summer season last? 2 months, 3 months? And a summer's day lasts not more than 24 hours. So this is the limitation of the sun. A summer's day has beauty, but that beauty does not last forever. Another thing is that every fear from fear sometimes declines. There may be many beautiful things in the summer, but these beautiful things are not beautiful always. There are some flowers that bloom in the morning, but in the evening, those flowers die. You will see some flowers are blooming in the morning, but when the darkness is descending, those flowers die. So the beauties that you find in the summer's day or in the summer season are not everlasting beauties. These beauties uh, decline either by chance or nature's changing course. Some beauties uh, decline either by chance. It may be there is a natural disaster, a wind is blowing, a gusty wind is blowing. That is why the flowers that bloomed in the morning are shaken down. And it may be that because of the change of the in the course of the nature, some beauties are declining. So these are the imperfections of the summer season. But die so these are the imperfections of the summer seasons. So what are the imperfections? One imperfection is that the rough winds blow in the summer's day, and rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. Summer season is not everlasting. It does not last long. A summer's day lasts only for 24 hours. In a summer's day, the sun shines very hotly overhead, and the sun is sometimes diminished. The luster of the sun is sometimes diminished. That means the sun sometimes gets hidden under the cloud and it cannot shine as brightly as it was doing in the morning. And there are many flowers that are beautiful, no doubt, but these beauties do not last long. In the morning, you will see these flowers are blooming, making the nature look very beautiful, but these flowers die when the day ends. So these beautiful things do not last longer. But look at the line. But, but thy eternal summer shall not fade. But my friend, your eternal summer shall not fade. Your summer is eternal. The summer created by God, the natural summer is not eternal. It is transient. It cannot um, last for more than 2 months. A summer's day does not last for more than 24 hours, but your summer is eternal, my friend. So, how can I compare you to a summer's day? A permanent thing cannot be compared to a transient thing. When the natural summer is transient, it lasts only for few hours. Your summer is eternal. And the summer's day has so many imperfections. You don't have any imperfection, nor lose possession of that fear thou owest. And you will never lose the beauty and the youth that you have. The summer that you have, the youth and beauty that you have are everlasting. This beauty, this youth will never decline. The beauty of a summer's day declines. The beauty of the summer season declines. But your beauty, your youth, your summer are everlasting. They do never decline. So, should I compare you to a summer's day? Shakespeare does not find any reason to compare his friend to a summer's day because a summer's day has so many imperfections, but his friend's beauty are everlasting. The spring his friend is enjoying is everlasting spring. The summer his friend is enjoying is everlasting summer. The beauty and the youth that his friend has are everlasting youth and beauty. That friend will never grow old. That friend will never lose its beauty, but all beautiful things of nature lose their beauty with the passage of time. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade. This is a line in which Shakespeare even challenges the power of God. Shakespeare, if Shakespeare was saying this today, perhaps many people who are criticizing Shakespeare, Shakespeare says that even death would fail to kill you, my friend. Your beauty, youth are so everlasting that even death will fail to kill you. My friend, you are so immortal now to me that even death will fail to kill you. Not even look, can you imagine? Shakespeare is in fact challenging the power of God. Death will fail to kill his friend. Death will not be able to kill his friend because nothing can make people forget his friend. Shakespeare, in another sonnet, has challenged the power of God, saying that there is no natural disaster created by God that would be able to destroy the memory that Shakespeare is building to preserve the memory of his friend. Okay, there will be no fire created by God on earth that will be able to burn away the memorial that Shakespeare is building. These 14 lines This 14 line poem is a kind of memorial. You know the meaning of memorial? Sriti Stambo. This is a kind of memorial that I'm making to preserve your beauty. So this memorial is an everlasting memorial. This memorial will remain on the earth as long as the earth will exist. There will be no fire, there will be no natural disaster that can destroy this memorial. And as long as this memorial will be here, you will be living in the hearts of people, and people will remember you. You will not die. As long as the Shahid Minar will be there, the people of Bangladesh will remember Salam, Barkot, Jabbar, Rafiq. They cannot die as long as Shahid Minar is there. As long as that uh, Sriti Shodo there in Shawar, the people of Bangladesh will remember the martyrs who sacrificed their lives to make this country independent. These people would be living as long as that is memorial is standing there. When that memorial would, would die, okay, memorial would get demolished, people gradually might forget the martyrs who sacrificed their lives. Shakespeare says that memorials that people have made in different types uh, get demolished, get dirty, lose their beauty with the passage of time. You know, there are many great people on this earth. Perhaps in those days, many memorials were erected to preserve their memory, but those memorials you will not find today. Go to Rome to find the grave of Julius Caesar, you will not find. But when Julius Caesar was buried, he was something was erected there. A tomb was made there. That tomb was preserving the beauty, memory of Julius Caesar. But today you will not find the place when or where Julius Caesar was buried. If Shakespeare had not written this play, Julius Caesar would have died. People remember today Julius Caesar only because Shakespeare wrote a play. If Shakespeare had not written that play, glorifying Julius Caesar would have deleted from our memory. There were thousands of people, millions of people on this earth who were the greatest people, who had a lot of contribution to this human civilization, but people have forgotten them because the memorials that were erected got demolished either by chance or by natural disasters. You know, now many memorials are bringing down in America. Memorials are bringing down in America because the people are getting angry with these people whose memorials are erected in these places. And gradually we'll see that after 200 years, people are forgetting these people whose memorials were erected there. But Shakespeare is making a kind of memorial with these 14 lines that is everlasting, that is permanent. Nothing will be able to destroy this memorial. There is no power on earth that can destroy this memorial. Because Shakespeare has said finally, look, as long as eyes can see, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. In these 14 lines, these lines are eternal lines, and you will grow in these 14 lines with the passage of time. You will become more beautiful. Usually, a beautiful thing loses its beauty with the passage of time. But I am making a kind of memorial to preserve your beauty, in which your beauty will increase. You will grow more beautiful in this memorial that I am. So these 14 lines are not actually a poem. These 14 lines are a kind of memorial, স্মৃতি স্তম্ভ। এটাকে স্মৃতি স্তম্ভ আমরা বলতে পারি। We can call it a memorial. We make memorial to preserve the memory of people. We don't want to forget these people. That is why we are making a memorial. Shakespeare does not want to forget his friend, and that's why Shakespeare is making a memorial. And with what is he making the memorial? He's not using any sand, brick, or stone to make the memorial, because Shakespeare knows that bricks, sand, cement are things that will not be able to preserve the memory of his friend forever. They will grow dirty and they are perishable. One day they will perish and people will forget his friend. So Shakespeare is using a kind of material to make that memorial that would preserve the beauty of his friend as long as the earth will exist. Till the till the doomsday, Shakespeare's memorial will exist on the earth. Shakespeare is very confident that so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long men can breathe, that means as long as men will breathe on this earth, as long as eyes will see, so long lives this, so long this memorial will live, and this gives life to them, and so long this memorial will give life to them. Look how confident Shakespeare is that Shakespeare has immortalized his friend in these 14 lines. Shakespeare is saying that so long, as long as eyes can see, so long, look, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see. He's very confident that his sonnets will be read by people till the last day of this um, universe. Okay, till the doomsday, people will go on reading Shakespeare's sonnet. Shakespeare thinks so, and it is true that there are after Shakespeare wrote the sonnets, there are many wars that happened in human history. Even there were two great wars: First World War, Second World War, in which England got involved, and there were also many other wars that the world has seen. Many things were burned to ashes, but the memorials that Shakespeare has made with lines are as fresh, as intact as it was. So nothing will be able to, how can destroy these memorials that Shakespeare has made? Even by trying heart and soul, you cannot forget Shakespeare's sonnets. The more you will read Shakespeare's sonnets, the more lively Shakespeare's friend will be. So Shakespeare is saying that so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this on this earth. That means this memorial will live on this earth. That means these sonnets will live on this earth. And so long these will give life to them. And these sonnets will give life to them. So it's not possible for people to forget Shakespeare's friend. Shakespeare has made an everlasting memorial to preserve the beauty of his friend, and his friend has become everlasting. His friend has become immortal. So Shakespeare has immortalized his friend. Can you imagine the uh, the the the, uh, the quality of Shakespeare? Okay, the intelligence of Shakespeare. Shakespeare has not used brick, sand, or any perishable material to build a memorial to preserve the beauty of his friend, to preserve the youth of his friend. Shakespeare has used lines that are everlasting, imperishable, to preserve the beauty of his pen. And we have been reading Shakespeare for the last 400 years, And every day, the number of readers of Shakespeare's sonnets and plays is increasing. And we hope that Shakespeare will continue being read in this way for many years. Perhaps people will never stop reading Shakespeare, because the characters that we find in Shakespeare's plays are um, such persons as will be found in all places and in all times of the world. And that's why people will never stop reading Shakespeare. Macbeth, Hamlet, King Lear are persons that you will find in all ages, in all countries. Macbeth is still a relevant character in our present society. King Lear is a relevant character in our present society. Hamlet is a relevant character in our society. So all the characters that Shakespeare has portrayed in his plays are relevant characters. They seem to be contemporary people. It seems that Shakespeare has talked about the lives of the people of the 21st century. It seems that Shakespeare has talked about the life of the people of Bangladesh through Macbeth, through Hamlet, through King Lear. So Shakespeare will never die. In the same way, Shakespeare's sonnets will go on being read by people. And Shakespeare has expressed his confidence that as long as people will be living on this earth, they will go on reading Shakespeare's plays. And as long as people will read his sonnets, so long his friends will be living on this earth. So this confidence Shakespeare has expressed through this line. So look, how can a man glorify or talk about the beauty of a man in that way if the man does not love that person so much? So Shakespeare loved that person really so much, and that's why it has been possible for him to talk about the beauty and youth of that person in this way. In a grandiloquent language, he has expressed the beauty and the youth of his friend. So either Shakespeare had homosexual relationship with that person whose beauty Shakespeare has glorified in this poem, or it is Shakespeare's son. And I think that it is Shakespeare's son whose beauty Shakespeare has glorified in this poem. However, what I'm saying is not true. I don't ask you to believe what I'm saying, and I don't believe what that professor of uh, Oxford University has said. It may not be true, because in sonnets from 1 to 17, we find Shakespeare is requesting his friend to get married soon and to beget children. But Shakespeare's son was only 11 years old. You know, a 11 years old boy is not a marriageable boy whom his father cannot advise to marry and beget children. There is a problem here. Although I'm saying that it may be Shakespeare's son, although the professor of that Oxford University is saying that professor of the Oxford University is saying that it was Shakespeare's son whose beauty and youth Shakespeare has glorified in this poem. But the problem is that this poem was written uh, in the time when Shakespeare wrote other sonnets, which have been categorized in that group that consists of that contains sonnets from 1 to 126. In these sonnets, we find some sonnets in which Shakespeare is requesting his friend to get married soon and beget children. In sonnets from 1 to 17, you will find Shakespeare is urging his friend to marry soon and to beget children soon. So here it is very difficult for us to believe that it was Shakespeare's son whose beauty and youth Shakespeare has glorified in this poem, because an 11-year-old boy cannot be advised by his father to marry and beget children soon. That creates a problem on our way to believe that it was Shakespeare's son whose beauty has been glorified in this manner. So, however, it's just look at the theme of the poem. We do not go to be concerned with the identity of the person. It's a wonderful sonnet. And while immortalizing Shakespeare's pen, Shakespeare has actually immortalized himself. He was very political. Okay. While he has immortalized his pen, Shakespeare has actually immortalized himself. As as long as this sonnet will be here, we'll know that this sonnet was written by Shakespeare. So as long as this memorial will be on the earth, As long as people will remember his friend, along with the memorial, along with the friend of Shakespeare, people will remember Shakespeare as well, because this sonnet is written by Shakespeare. So whenever we are going to remember Shakespeare's friend, we are going to remember Shakespeare. So Shakespeare has killed two birds with one stone. He has immortalized his friend, and while immortalizing his friend, Shakespeare has also immortalized himself. So this is Shakespeare. No other author on the world, on the earth, under the sun, you will find who was as powerful as Shakespeare was, because nobody has been able to make himself immortal. A author who was an influential author in the 17th century, 18th century, is now a dead author. People do not read his books. In the Acacia book fair, you will go to the book fair, you will see many books are sold on the street. They are not sold in the main campus of Bangla Academy, because these books are now not read by people. People do not spend money to buy these books, and that's why these books are now sold on the roadside, on the wayside, on the road, on the street. These books are very cheap books, but in the 19th century, 18th century, these books were very powerful books. Today we are reading Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, Sharat Chandra Chatterjee, only because, just to pay honor to them, one or two stories and novels we read today. A day may come when people will completely forget Sharat Chandra Chatterjee. Do you know when is the birthday of Sharat Chandra? Or do we celebrate birthday, death anniversary of Sharat Chandra Chatterjee? Today we do not read Sharat Chandra Chatterjee as much as people in the 20th century were reading him. So gradually these authors are becoming old. And you will also find many authors in England who are becoming old with the passage of time. But Shakespeare is not becoming old. Shakespeare is every day becoming young. Shakespeare from the old age is becoming young every day, because every day the number of readers and audiences of Shakespeare's plays and poetry is increasing. And every day England is earning a huge amount of money by selling Shakespeare to the people of the world. You know, Shakespeare is every day playing a significant role to the construction and development of the economy of England. Every day, even today, Shakespeare is developing the economy of England. He's playing a significant role. So English people will not let Shakespeare die, and in fact we will never be able to kill Shakespeare. As long as Shakespeare's plays we will read, we will remember Shakespeare, and Shakespeare will be living in our heart. And as long as we will read Shakespeare's sonnets, Shakespeare's friend will be living in these sonnets. So Shakespeare has made a kind of memorial in which Shakespeare has immortalized his friend. Now look at the structure of the sonnet. You know, a sonnet is a poem consisting of 14 lines. Shakespeare is another famous in another uh, sense as a sonneteer, because Shakespeare did not write this sonnet in the conventional pattern. Okay, Shakespeare developed a new pattern of sonnet. Before Shakespeare, other people were following the structure of sonnets left by Petrarch. Petrarch is the father of sonnet. Okay, he developed the pattern of sonnet, the structure of sonnet, and people from that time had been following the pattern of Petrarchian sonnets in all literature. In our literature, Madhusudan Datta has written many sonnets. In all literatures, you will find many people practiced sonnets, wrote sonnets, but all of these authors wrote sonnets in the pattern of Petrarchian sonnets. But Shakespeare developed a new pattern of sonnet. He did not write sonnets in the pattern in which Petrarch wrote or other writers before Shakespeare were writing. Before Shakespeare, Philip Sidney wrote many sonnets, and he wrote sonnets on the structure developed by Petrarch. But Shakespeare developed a new pattern of sonnet. He developed a new structure of sonnet. What is the difference between Shakespearean sonnets and Petrarchian sonnets? We need to know. Sonnets structures, sonnets structures are as important as the themes of sonnet. Okay, so we have to understand the structures of sonnet. A Petrarchian sonnet is divided into two halves. 14 lines have been divided into two paragraphs. The first paragraph, that consists of 8 lines, is called an octave. And the last paragraph, that consists of 6 lines, is called a sestet. The rhyme scheme of the octave in Petrarchian sonnet is Abba Abba. Abba Abba means A, B, B, A. Okay? The first line will end with A, the second line will end with B, the third line will end with B, and the fourth line will end with A. So A, B, B, A, Abba. Again, the same rhyme pattern will be followed for the next 4 lines. That means A, B, B, A. And the rhyming scheme of the sestet is C, D, E, C, D, E, or C, D, C, D, eh, C, C, D, D, E, E, like this. The rhyme scheme of the sestet is not fixed, but the rhyme scheme of the octave is fixed. In no way you can violate or deviate from the rhyme scheme of the octave. You must write your lines in a way that they would end with A, B, B, A, B, B, A, Abba, Abba. That is a Petrarchian sonnet. And the sestet will end with C, D, E, C, D, E, or C, D, C, D, E. That means the rhyme, I've already said, the rhyme scheme of the sestet is not fixed. We find usually it ends with C, D, E, C, D, A. But in one or two sonnets, we say sometimes the rhyme scheme of the sestet is not like that. But the rhyme scheme of the octave is fixed. If you're writing a sonnet, you must write the sonnet on that structure. Lines have to end with that rhyme scheme. A Shakespearean sonnet is different from a Petrarchian sonnet. A Petrarchian sonnet, sorry, a Shakespearean sonnet is divided into three quatrains, and a couplet. A Shakespearean sonnet is divided into, so I want to share the screen to show you a Shakespearean sonnet that will help you to understand how it is happening. So look, a Shakespearean sonnet is divided into three quatrains, followed by a couplet. A quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines. So there are 3 quatrains. That means eh, 3/4 are 12, and a quatrain, sorry, a couplet consists of 2 lines. So 12 lines and 2 lines are 14 lines. So a Shakespearean sonnet is divided into 3 quatrains, followed by a couplet. And the rhyme scheme of Shakespearean sonnet is A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. I'm again saying A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Look at this. Can you see my I want to show you. Look, day, Y is equivalent to A. E equivalent to B. So A, B. Look again, A. Y is equivalent to A. So A, Y, Y. That means A, A. E is equivalent to B. Suppose E is equivalent to B. So this E, if you think this E is B, so it will also end with B. So E, that means B, B. So A, B, A, B. C, D, C, D. Look, this S, suppose this S is C. And C, D, look, again S, that means C. And D, C, D, C, D. This E is equivalent to F. Suppose this E is F. So, sorry, E. E, F, look again, E, F. That means T, T, and E, E. That means E, F, E, F. And G, G. Look, G, G. So this is the rhyme scheme of Shakespearean sonnets. A Shakespearean sonnet is divided into 3 quatrains, followed by a couplet. So look, A, B, A B, C D C D, E F E F, and G G. However, although the rhyme scheme in this sonnet is Shakespearean rhyme scheme, but the structure of this sonnet under the surface is very much like Petrarchian structure, because um, look again, come back to Petrarchian sonnet. The octave that consists of 8 lines is actually a proposition. Okay, it is the proposition, and the last 6 lines that we call a sestet is the revelation. That means in the first 8 lines the poet will propose a thing, and in the next 6 line he will eh, reveal the thing that he is proposing in the octave. So the octave is a proposition and the sestet is a revelation. In the octave, the poet will propose a thing, and in the next 6 lines that we call a sestet, the poet will reveal the thing. The proposition will be revealed in the sestet. That means in the proposition you will find one kind of tone, and in the sestet you will find a different kind of tone. One is proposition and the other is revelation. So a sonnet is divided into two halves, not only structurally, even thematically, even even in tone. That means we find one kind of tone in the octave, and we find a different kind of tone in the sestet. In the octave, we find proposition, and in the sestet, we find the revelation. In Shakespearean sonnets, we see that the 12 lines, that means the quatrains, make the proposition. That means the poet is proposing a thing in the first 3 quatrains. That means in the quatrains, a sonnet is divided into 3 quatrains, followed by a couplet. The couplet is the revelation, and the 3 quatrains are the proposition. In the 3 quatrains, the poet is telling us what actually he is going to say, or he is narrating, and in the uh, couplet we will get the answer of what the poet is proposing. So look, Shakespearean sonnet is different from Petrarchian sonnet both structurally and thematically, in tone. But this sonnet seems very much like a Petrarchian sonnet in tone and in structure. Look, before but, okay, in these 8 lines, come to but, this but is making the sestet. The but, that means the, if you think that this is the second part of a sonnet, Petrarchian sonnet, you will find a different tone here, and in these 8 lines you will find another tone here. Look here, in these 8 lines the poet is proposing a thing. The poet does not want to compare his pen to a summer's day. Why? He is giving the reason why he does not want to compare his pen to a summer's day. In these 8 lines, the poet is giving us the reasons why he doesn't want to compare his pen to a summer's day. He has narrated the imperfections and the limitations of a summer's day in these 8 lines. So we find a kind of tone in these 8 lines. And here we find another kind of tone. We find his pen is more beautiful than the summer season. So in this 6th line, the poet is talking about his friend, about the eternal beauty of his friend, about the youth of his friend, and in these 8 lines, the poet was talking about the imperfections, about the limitations of the summer's day. So although this poet has Shakespearean rhyme scheme, but the structure of the poem seems very much like a Petrarchian sonnet, Petrarchian structure. Now come to sonnet number 18, sorry, 130. This sonnet is an absolutely Shakespearean sonnet, sonnet number 130. Sonnet 130. Okay, this sonnet is a real kind of Shakespearean sonnet. All features of Shakespearean sonnets are found in the sonnets of the second group. That means in sonnets from 127 to 154. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. The poet is saying that my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. In this sonnet, Shakespeare has talked about a woman whose identity is a mystery to us. We don't know who this woman was. Shakespeare has not talked about the identity of the woman, but he has glorified, or he has expressed his love towards that woman in these sonnets. Shakespeare is saying that my mistress's eyes are not nothing like the sun. Look, look at the comparison. Shakespeare wants to compare the eyes of his beloved to the sun. When he is going to compare the eyes of his beloved to the sun, he says that the eyes of my beloved are not like the sun. The eyes of my wife, beloved, are so ugly that they cannot be compared to the sun. The sun is brighter than the eyes of my son. But Petrarch says in his sonnets that the eyes of his beloved are so bright that the moon or the sun will feel ashamed. The sun is not so lustrous. The moon is not so lustrous as the eyes of his two beloved. If the moon says the eyes of his beloved, if the sun says the eyes of his beloved, they will feel ashamed that the eyes of this lady are so beautiful that we are not. But Shakespeare is saying that my beloved's eyes are not like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. Shakespeare says that the lips of my beloved are not so red as the coral is. Even a coral is redder than the lips of my beloved. You know, coral, you will find coral in Saint Martin. It is of muddy color. Okay, it is not actually red. But Shakespeare is saying that when the coral that is not red is redder than the lips of my beloved. Petrarch will say, the lips of my beloved are so red that nothing you will find on this earth that is as red as the lips of my beloved. আমাদের বাংলাদেশেও কিন্তু অনেক কবি আছে, তারা গান লিখেছে, তাদের প্রেমিকার চুল এত কালো যে মেঘও এত কালো না, এত কালো যে কাজলের কালো এত কালো না তাদের প্রেমিকার চুল। কিন্তু শেক্সপিয়ার বলছে, ইফ স্নো বি হোয়াইট, হোয়াই দেন হার ব্রেস্টস আর ডিউ ডান। If snow is white, if snow is white compared to snow, I have to say the breasts of my beloved are not at all white. The breasts of the beloved of Shakespeare are completely ugly. They cannot be called white if snow is white. But in Andrew Marvell's To His Coy Mistress, you will see that Andrew Marvell is saying that the breasts of his beloved are so beautiful that it is not possible for him to give a full description of the two breasts of his beloved in one life. Andrew Marvell needs thousands of years time to give a complete description of the beauty of the two breasts of his beloved, let alone the other parts of the body of his beloved. But Shakespeare says that the breasts of his beloved are not at all white, ugly. And if hairs be were, black hairs grow on her head. And if hairs are like hairs, I have got to say that black hairs grow on the head of my beloved. These hairs cannot be called actually hairs. They are very much like black wires. I have seen roses damasked, red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. I have seen white roses, red roses in my life, but I don't find any such rose in the cheeks of my beloved. Petrarch will say that God has not created any flower on the earth that is as beautiful as the cheeks of my beloved. Andrew Marvell will perhaps say, nothing on this earth is as beautiful, as gorgeous as the cheeks of my beloved. But Shakespeare says that I have seen red rose, white rose, but I don't find any such rose in the cheeks of my beloved. The cheeks of my beloved are very much like the cheeks of a woman. The cheeks of my beloved are not like the cheeks of a goddess. My beloved is very much like a woman having imperfections. She is not like a goddess as Petrarch's beloved was to her. But no, and in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress's ricks. And even in the markets, the cheap perfumes that you will find is much sweeter than the breath that comes out of the mouth of my beloved. The perfumes that you find being sold in the market by hawkers, okay, are sweeter than the than the smell that comes out from the mouth of his beloved. Petrarch will spend thousands of years sitting very close to the mouth of his beloved, eh, breathing in the smell of her beloved's smell. But Shakespeare says that that kind of smell does not come out from the mouth of my beloved. The smell that comes out from the mouth of my beloved is stinky, and Shakespeare cannot tolerate it. In fact, even the cheap perfume is sweeter, more aromatic than the odor that comes out from the body and mouth of his beloved. I love to hear her speak. I love to hear her speak. My beloved speaks, and I have got to say that I love to hear her speak. Yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. Nevertheless, I will say that even the cheap music that you hear on the street is much more pleasing than the words that my beloved says. আমার প্রেমিকার কথা অত মধুর না যত মধুর বাজারের একেবারে 3 পয়সার যে আইসক্রিম বিক্রি করে না, গ্রামে গ্রামে মাইক বিক্রি করে সেই যে গান হয় সেখানে, সে গানও অনেক সুন্দর আমার প্রেমিকার মুখের কথার চেয়েও। এই হচ্ছে তার প্রেমিকার সৌন্দর্যের বর্ণনা শেক্সপিয়ার দিচ্ছে এভাবে, যে তার মুখের গন্ধ এত খারাপ যে বাজারের 3 পয়সার আলতাও তার চেয়ে বেশি সুন্দর। তার চুল এতই ভালো যে তাকে সে তারের সাথে তুলনা করেছে। This is how Shakespeare is comparing the beauties of his beloved. Look at the images that Shakespeare has used to compare the beauty of his beloved. And I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And I must say that I will not say that I grant I never saw a goddess go. When my beloved walks on the street, I'll not say that I see a goddess walking there. When Petrarch's beloved was walking, it seemed to Petrarch that a goddess has come down from the sky and is walking on the ground. And Petrarch was walking after her just to have a chance to talk to her. But that lady was not looking back to talk to Petrarch. Shakespeare is saying that when my beloved works, I don't see any goddess in her. Rather, she creates a kind of bad sound, like ধপ ধপ করে মাটিতে যখন তার প্রেমিকা হেঁটে যায় এক ধরনের ভয়ঙ্কর শব্দ তৈরি হয়। হ্যাঁ, but Petrarch felt that a goddess was walking, making a kind of rhythmic sound. Petrarch liked to hear the sound of the walking of her beloved. It seemed to him that it is not a human being, it was a goddess that was walking on the ground. But Shakespeare does not find any such goddess in his beloved. Rather, when his beloved is walking on the street, it creates a kind of disturbing sound to his eyes. This is the proposition. These are the 12 lines of Shakespeare's sonnet. So in this proposition, Shakespeare has said something. এখন শেক্সপিয়ার কি তার প্রেমিকাকে ভালোবাসবে, যার মুখের গন্ধ এত ভালো, যার মাথার চুল এত খারাপ, যার যার গালে সে কোনো গোলাপ ফুল দেখতে পায় না, যার কথা শুনলে তার সেখান থেকে পালিয়ে যেতে ইচ্ছা করে, বা যে হাঁটা দেখলে তার ভয় করে যে কি একটা আসছে, একটা ভূত পেতনি আসছে, এরকম একটা ভাব। শেক্সপিয়ার কি তার প্রেমিকাকে ভালোবাসবে? এই মেয়েটাকে কি ভালোবাসার কোনো কারণ রয়েছে একজন মানুষের? শুড শেক্সপিয়ার লাভ দিস ওম্যান? ডাজ দিস ওম্যান হ্যাজ এনিথিং অ্যাট্রাকটিভ ফর হুইচ শেক্সপিয়ার নিডস টু লাভ হার? Shakespeare has not found anything charming in the personality of this woman. So Shakespeare should not love this woman. That is what Shakespeare actually proposing in the first 12 lines. It seems প্রথম 12 লাইনে তিনি যে সকল বর্ণনা দিলেন তাতে এই ধারণাই আমাদের হয় যে শেক্সপিয়ার আসলে তার প্রেমিকাকে ভালোবাসবে না। But what is astonishing is that what Shakespeare says in the couplet is completely contradictory to what he has said in the first 12 lines. That is a characteristic quality of Shakespeare's sonnet. The couplet is completely uh, uh, contradictory to what Shakespeare has said in the quatrains. The proposition that he has made in the quatrains, turn on the light, Baba. The proposition that he has made in the quatrains is completely different from what Shakespeare says in the couplet. In the couplet, what she says, yet by heaven I think my love as real. By heaven I say that my love for this lady is perfect. And any she belied, as any she belied with false compare. And I don't want to make any false comparison between her and other things, as Petrarch did. Petrarch did not make any real comparison when he was comparing his beloved to a goddess, when he was finding a goddess walking on the ground, when he was finding nothing beautiful on the earth which was as beautiful as his beloved, when Petrarch was finding the smell coming out from the mouth of his beloved was the sweetest smell on the earth. এরকম করে যখন বলতেছে তখন Petrarch was making false comparison between his beloved and the other things. Shakespeare says that he does not want to make such false comparison. His beloved does not have any such beauties that Petrarch found in his beloved. Nevertheless, Shakespeare loves his beloved 100 times more than Petrarch loved. So Shakespeare is very much practical in his approach to love, but Petrarch was very romantic in his approach to love. So while Petrarch's love was romantic, that means that was incredible, unbelievable, unreal. Shakespeare's love towards his beloved is also unreal, incredible, but it is fantastic. It is really, really true that Shakespeare has said. So in all the sonnets from 127 to 154, you will find the theme presented in this way. The first 12 lines say one thing, but the last 2 lines say something that is astonishing. That is contradictory to what Shakespeare has said in the first 12 lines. That is how Shakespeare made his sonnets different from Petrarchian sonnets. It's a unique structure of sonnets that Shakespeare developed. In the sonnets of the first group, Shakespeare developed themes in the way Petrarch developed, but in the sonnets that he wrote at the later stage of his life, that is in the sonnets from 127 to 154, Shakespeare has written his ideas in this way. So এই প্যাটার্নটা কিন্তু মনে রাখতে হবে যে পেট্রার্কের 8 লাইন প্রপোজিশন আর 6 লাইন হচ্ছে রিভিলেশন, আর শেক্সপিয়ারের 12 লাইন হচ্ছে প্রপোজিশন আর লাস্ট 2 লাইন হচ্ছে রিভিলেশন। কিন্তু এই রিভিলেশনটা ইট শুড বি আ logical conclusion of the proposition, but what we see in the couplet is completely different. It is not logical conclusion of what he said in the quatrains. Quatrains যা বলেছে সেটার মতন লজিক্যাল হচ্ছে না উনি কাপলেটে যেটা বলছে। কারণ কোয়াট্রেনে এত দোষ, একটা ছেলে একটা মেয়েকে দেখতে গেছে বিয়ের জন্য, মেয়েটা দেখে আসলো, দেখে এসে মা যখন জিজ্ঞাসা করলো তুই কেমন দেখলি মেয়েটার, তো ও যদি বাড়িতে এসে বলে যে মা মেয়েটার নাকটা বড় লম্বা, একটু চোখ দুটা এরকম হরিণের চোখের মতো না, এগুলা হচ্ছে গোল আলুর মতন দেখতে, আর মেয়েটা লম্বা তাল গাছের মতন লম্বা। মেয়েটা, আমি এটা একটু রেকর্ড করছি তো বন্ধ করে দিই না।